On July 27, 2008, the story took a dark and terrifying turn. It was a Sunday, a day for a supervised visit. Clark Rockefeller was supposed to meet his daughter, Ray, on a street in Boston's Back Bay. The social worker was there. Sandra Boss was not. As the 7-year-old girl ran to greet her father, he and another person quickly acted. They pushed the social worker to the ground. They grabbed the little girl. They forced her into a waiting car and sped away. The carefully made-up image of the strange intellectual was gone. In its place was a violent kidnapper. The kidnapping started a huge search. The FBI was called in right away. The story was everywhere. The kidnapping of a Rockefeller's daughter was big news. The irony was strong. The very name he had used to build his life of lies was now the reason the whole world was looking for him. The police released his picture. They asked the public for help. They had no idea who they were really looking for. They were hunting for Clark Rockefeller, a ghost. They didn't know his real name. They didn't know his real history. They were chasing a phantom. The investigation moved very fast. The FBI was relentless. They followed every clue. They tracked his movements. They found out he had hired a car service to drive him and his daughter to New York City. From there, he had taken a taxi. He was trying to disappear again, but this time was different. He had a child with him, and the full power of federal law enforcement was coming down on him. There was nowhere to run. There was nowhere to hide. The net was closing in around him. His decades-long escape from the law was about to come to a dramatic end. Just 6 days after the kidnapping, the FBI found him. They tracked him to a small apartment in Baltimore, Maryland. He had bought a catamaran and was planning to sail away. He had changed his appearance. He had a new name ready. He was trying to change who he was one last time, but it was too late. FBI agents burst into the apartment. They found him there. They found little Ray, safe and unharmed. The man they arrested was Clark Rockefeller, but the biggest question remained. Who was he, really? The search was over. But the mystery was just beginning. With his capture, the final revealing began. The FBI checked his fingerprints. The results were shocking. The man who called himself Clark Rockefeller was not a Rockefeller at all. His name was Christian Karl Gerhartsreiter, a German citizen, a man who had been living a lie for 3 decades. The news sent shockwaves through the rich circles he had gotten into. The friends who had admired him, the wife who had loved him, the partners who had trusted him, all had been fooled. The elaborate world he had built crumbled into dust. The trick was finally over. The past came rushing back to meet him. The authorities in California were very interested in his arrest. They remembered the unsolved case of John and Linda Sohus, the couple who had vanished from San Marino in 1985, the couple whose guest house had been rented by a man named Christopher Crow, a man who was now identified as Christian Gerhartsreiter. In 1994, a construction crew digging a swimming pool in the backyard of the Sohus home had found human remains. The bones were identified as those of John Sohus. The case was no longer a missing persons investigation. It was a murder investigation. First, he had to face justice for the kidnapping. In 2009, a Boston jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to 4 to 5 years in prison. But his legal troubles were far from over. As soon as he finished his sentence in Massachusetts, he was sent to California. He was put on trial for the murder of John Sohus. The lawyers for the prosecution laid out the case against him based on clues, the lies, the stolen truck, his sudden disappearance after the couple went missing. Gerhartsreiter maintained he was innocent. He was calm and arrogant on the stand, a final performance for the jury. In 2013, the jury gave its decision. Guilty. Christian Gerhartsreiter, the fake Rockefeller, the English lord, the Hollywood producer, was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. The long, strange journey that began in a small Bavarian village had ended in a California prison cell. The boy who dreamed of becoming someone else had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams, but in the end, he could not escape the truth. He could not escape the consequences of his actions. The final curtain had fallen on one of the most remarkable fakes the world has ever seen.